But I thought, oh, I know what this is, very confidently. In fact, I was completely wrong, it's either here or there. I was like, this is the birth show. This is the start of labour. So I shook and everything happened, and I sort of rolled my face in a towel, and that seemed to help. And then I thought, right, well, when this is through, I'll go and get back in the pool, and then we'll start labour. So I'll tell Tony that we're breathing up properly. So we got back in the pool, and Tony went, I went, right, this is it. So you have to really concentrate on the breathing. I mean, I was still giving directions, so, you know, I was really quite calm. And then he said, right, so breathing in for 4, and he's counting. And then I went, actually, I don't want to breathe up, I want to breathe down. I think the baby's coming. So at this point, Debbie was here, and she came over and said, now I'm putting all the equipment. I said, you won't need it, leave it in the car. And she said, no, I'll put it all in the other room, because they have all this equipment, gas and air and all that sort of thing. I said, you won't need it. I put it in wherever, I don't mind. And she said, well, I'll put it in the other room. I said, I don't want to see it. Put it somewhere I can't see it. So she did. And by the time she got that, the head was coming. And Debbie said I could touch the head, which I did, which was amazing. But I realised that she wasn't, it was only the top of the head, and she wasn't actually, the whole head wasn't out. So I thought, actually, I'm actually going to have to really focus on this. And that's where Tony was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And what I put here was, I waited till I felt it was right. I even panted for a second, focusing on not tearing, blowing out the candles, which I think is one of the images. Tony was counting 4-8 relaxation breaths at this point. It was really helpful. Couldn't have done this bit without him, as it was very, very intense. One massive breath / push down, and I birthed the head. As it crowned, I looked up and said, well, that bit bloody hurt. Because it was the only bit that did. And I've been sort of, I suppose somewhere in my mind, I'd thought, yes, somewhere this is going to be painful, but actually nothing was painful. It was intense, and it was quite, I had to really concentrate. I had to do a lot of concentration, and that's where the practice was invaluable. And the fact that Tony knew what I was having to do and kept me focused on it was brilliant. And then I went back into focusing again, and I said to Debbie, that was the head, wasn't it? And she said yes. And before that, actually, to show how calm I was, there was a point where she said, oh, before the baby comes, we need the pool to be hotter. So we need it to go up. And Tony and Debbie were faffing around with this control. And I looked up and said, look, you press the button on the right 2 times. So I directed how to do it. Then I went back into focusing. So that was useful. So anyway, that was the head. And then Debbie later told me the baby was looking around, that baby there, was looking around in the water with her eyes open. I breathed for 4-8 again, and then when I felt that Connie was ready, apparently she did a full 360 degrees to get her shoulders out. And then Debbie passed her to me between my legs, and I have to say, that was the most magical moment of my life. Very lovely. And she came up through the water to me, face first, between my legs and up. So the only thing the midwife did was push Connie very gently through my legs up, so she could, and then I picked her up, and she started screaming beautifully. And then after 15 minutes, Tony was actually just by the side of the pool. He'd been actually holding my head up during the surgeries because I kept wanting to go underwater, and he thought I was going to drown. And he was sitting just next to me, and so he was there, and it was lovely. And then he took Connie after about 15 minutes to have skin to skin, so we were all pretty much naked. It was a very naked birth. It was lovely, and Connie was on Tony skin to skin, which I think was brilliant. And then I went hysterical, going, I've done it, I've got a baby, oh, it's amazing, we did it how we wanted to do it. And the midwife was just as excited. She was brilliant. And then she said to me, right, what are we going to do about this placenta? I hadn't really registered that I had to birth the placenta. So she gave me an hour, actually, so all this idea of speeding up the process, it was beautiful. We just sat and laughed and talked about how we'd done this marvellous birth, and looked at Connie, and she was happily lying, cuddling into Tony. And Connie, you're going to fall over there, darling, if you do that. And it was gorgeous. And then she said, you know, really, we do have to do this placenta thing. So I said, oh, do I have to actually birth it? She went, yeah, you do. I was like, oh, God, okay. So I stood up and got out of the pool for that, because she said you might find that easier. And one breath of breathing down, thinking of the ripples and all that, and out it popped really easily. And then, and it was huge, the size of a football, deflated. I couldn't believe it. And after lots of hot, sweet tea my first go at breastfeeding, she showed it to me, which was really very special. I did want to bury it in the woods, but I was really worried that we lived in a really rural location and something would dig it up. So she took it away. But you can keep it. She did offer me to keep it and bury it myself, but I decided not to. It was amazing, and I put here, I feel so proud of Tony, me and Connie for her lovely birth. What a great team effort.
So you should feel proud.
And I think it was a team effort. But it happened because, and there was a lot of effort in terms of practice, work, mental preparation, Tony's preparation, the midwife being happy and on side, and everyone working as a really good team for what we wanted.
Yes.
And then we got you, didn't we?